This is Kendra with Trust TV, and I'm back with another video. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Turn on post notification, hit the bell, and put a thumbs up for the algorithm. It's for free. It does not do anything but push the videos forward. But anyway, this is for educational purposes only. I wanted to break down this video and rectify some of the information that is given on this video. Now, the biblical aspects of this video is accurate, but it's the historical parts of this video that is very much inaccurate. And if you watch my previous videos, I broke down the transatlantic slave trade and its inference. It's fake. And I broke a lot of this information down. Go check out the other videos so you're not behind on understanding why it is fake and how it never happened. And the real slave trade that took place in America. So I'm going to, get into this right now.
Followed him upon white horses, clothed in fine linen, white and clean.
And sorry if y'all...
Read it again.
Sorry if y'all hear the background. My AC fan is out, so it's hot as hell, and I gotta keep the windows open.
Not angel armies, not some ethereal ghost battalion. Armies, plural. Human soldiers in resurrection bodies, riding behind the King of Kings when he splits the sky. Now here's the question that should make your palms sweat. Because if you think it's a random lottery of good church folk, you haven't been paying attention to how God writes his endings. He's been casting this final battle since Genesis. And black people, your bloodline, your ancestors, your children are written into the script with ink that won't fade. They told you that you were cursed. They built a theology around your oppression, quoted Deuteronomy 28 like it was your birth certificate, and conveniently stopped reading at verse 15. But verse 68 says something they don't preach about. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships by the way, whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again. And there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. Egypt, not the geographic location. Egypt in Hebrew prophetic language means the house of bondage, the place of slavery. Ships. The middle passage wasn't a coincidence. It was a prophecy being fulfilled in wood and iron.
All right, so I had to pause it there. It wasn't going to let me pause it because they don't want me to explain this. It wasn't letting me pause. So I wanted to break down the middle passage. Again, like I already told y'all, the middle passage is fake, right? There are no continuation, embarkation, disembarkation from Africa to the Americas manifest or ledger. If you know anything about any ship, these manifests prove the boat's existence. There are also no law of marque, which is, a license to even sail such ships. These ships were not small vessels. These were large vessels, medium vessels, and these vessels were huge, right? So if the Queen is going to give you a royal stamp of approval to go about sailing to get any such cargo, she is going to need to prove that the ship exists. There are no bill of sales, right? There are no bill of sales that these boats were ever purchased, right? And if they say, oh, there's insurance records, well, you can't insure any vessel. And they'll say, well, times was different. Time may have been different, but insurance stands the same. If, in fact, the Queen didn't just allow any old Joe Schmo to just go out there and become a slave or a boat, a slave boat driver, or, somebody who's getting any type of cargo. The Queen was not stupid. The King and Queen, you had to have a whole crew. You had to have people who specialized in navigation. You needed a cook. You needed food, water. You needed all these things. And boats did not come at that time with the engines and stuff that we have today in the 1500s. So you're going to need an extensive crew, and they're going to have to be very knowledgeable in navigation and, keeping the cargo, how to maintain whatever it is that's being placed on this vessel. So she's going to want proof of the boat. She's not going to just hand you money because you say, oh, I can go, I know this land over here got such and such people or such and such, material. She needs to show, she's funding in the voyage. So she's going to need, proof that the boat exists. So if there's insurance on these boats, then there must be a manifest. There has to be a manifest or a bill of sales, because nobody's going to put insurance on a boat that doesn't even exist, that wasn't even purchased. That doesn't make sense. And the queen and the king are not going to give funding to a person with an idea without evidential proof that the boats exist. You understand? She's gonna give you money, but you don't have no bill of sales that you even purchased the boat. You don't have a manifest of everybody that's got to go with you to be able, because she need to know you know how to maintain, right? They're giving you money. It's just like a bank. You need to come in there with your every T crossed and every I dotted. So she's not going to just hand you money. He or she, they're not going to just hand you money. And times was like that even then. People are not dumb. That's where we get some of our laws, and the concept of insurance is from the old world. So they're not going to just give you money. So therefore, there should be manifests for the captain, the crew, the cargo. There should be manifests. There should be embarkation, disembarkation manifest. Disembarking from wherever land they coming from, continuation, embarkation into wherever they're stopping off to drop off, to get or to transfer whatever they are transferring to another country. So there aren't any bill of sales for the Catilda, Amistad, White Lion, Treasurer, Dutch Man of War, for the Salwan Bautista, Portuguese galleon. Any ship that they claim are alleged from Angola, I forgot, Lisbon, something, from Angola, any of the ships that they tell you that, for the trucks and stuff, any ships that they tell you are slave ships have no proof of existence. It has no bill of sale. Even privateer ship has to have funding. Somebody of the royal status or somebody with money is going to need proof, a bill of sale to prove the proof of purchase to insure the ship. These weren't little old medial, these were huge vessels, allegedly. So they're going to need, these vessels of any kind are going to need a bill of sales. Sorry, y'all. Okay? You're going to need proof of bill of sales. You're going to need the bill of sales in order to have insurance. Even for privateer people, even for the privateers, if I'm giving you funding, I'm going to have to get, number one, there should be a receipt stamped by the person, right? Just in case the shipwreck. So even if it's a privateer ship, whoever it is that's funding you is going to give stamp of approval that you received this money so that you can pay it back. And if in fact this ship capsize or get wrecked, they're going to want their money back, and that's when they place insurance on it. So you're going to need the bill of sales in order to get insurance on the ship. They're missing all of these documents that they tell you you're a transatlantic slave. They're saying that you came via Myth Passage, but they do not have any documentation to support that. They don't got any bill of sales and purchase of the ships, any insurance records that are corroborated by the manifest and the law of marquis and the bill of sales or royal decree, or even a stamp of any institution that would be funding privateer ships to go out there and get any such cargo. They have none of this information. None. You can't find it in any archival records. But what you do find is that black people are on muster rolls in the 15, 16, 1700s, but they can't tell you how these so-called Negroes got there. They have no proof that you're an immigrant. They have no proof that you came by way of ship. So before you keep calling yourself African American or African descent, by way of a false slave narrative. Some of y'all ancestors weren't even slaves. Some of y'all ancestors were also people who owned people, who had indentures working for you, right? Some of your ancestors even had slaves during that time, black people. So stop letting them tell you and feed you all the narrative without being able to factualize and substantiate any of the facts that they're giving you, because none of it is proven. All the things that they're giving to you, there are no historical or archival works that prove it. A lot of this is manifest. And what they're doing, and I said this in a previous video, not to take up the time of this video, but I have to explain this. One of the things they use to try to explain the transatlantic slave trade and these slave ships, they'll use things like newspaper articles or somebody on a muster roll wrote about it. Well, that's not credible without the manifest, because without the manifest, somebody writing about something is hearsay. That's a historical or not historical. That is, I think, yes, it's a historical proof of evidence. It's a historical hearsay. I know I'm saying it wrong, but you get what I mean. It's considered hearsay when it comes to historical evidence. It's not factualized unless the bill of sales for these ships exists. Those secondary sources, because a primary sources is a current day event, right? And they'll try to tell you, yeah, they are current day events. They're not. They're not current day events. If you have insurance on something, but you don't have the bill of sales, that is not proof, right? Because anybody can make up insurance or claim it in a claim that there was insurance placed on this ship, in writing, which a lot of it, if you start researching, you'll find people saying that somebody's talking about it. And again, they'll even try to give you manifest. I talked to you about Bristol, how they were trying to convince me. They sent me a manifest. It was a written manifest, and I opened it up, and the manifest literally says, ship 10, something like that, a list of ships going, sailing to Africa from, I think it was like somewhere in Colombia, and it gave all the names. And and AI had told me that these were lists of people, right? This is the proof of the manifest. They got the names of the people, this, that, and the third. I want to go into it. Go watch the video, because this will throw me off. But as I'm saying, it was nothing. It was a list of ships that were going to Africa, not coming from it. They don't have, and even with that manifest, there was no law. There was no bill of sales. There was no law of marquee to even corroborate that the boat exists. So anybody can draw something up with a quill. Anybody with a quill and ink can draw up a manifest. So it's not credible, because you need legitimate bill of sales to prove that the ship exists by way of purchase, which any slave, you name it, any slave ship prior to 1850s do not exist. That you cannot find any manifest, bill of sales, law of marquee, that at all. That is continuation, embarkation from Africa, disembarkation in America. They have absolutely none. And the reason why I stressed the continuation is because inference. The Sowan Bautista that was allegedly supposed to have the 20 and odd Negro Angolans robbed by the White Line and Treasurer. The problem with the Sowan Bautista is that ship wrecked in 1551. So that ship would have never made it 1619. It would have never been able to get robbed by the White Lion and the Treasurer in 1619, because it had shipwrecked and was not able to be salvaged because of the extensive damage to it. And a lot of the people who were on board the ship had to use it for shelter, so it could never be salvaged. But they don't tell you that. They add inference and say, okay, well, the ship left and they got paid, because a lot of time back in the day they would give you the money to fund the ship. So the moment that your ship took off, it embarked and packed it up and it left, right? And they would pay you right there once it leaves the port. But the problem with it is most of these ships, all of them, they all sank. And one of the biggest issues with these ships is that they're missing bill of sales. They're missing being purchased. So even that is hearsay without corroborable evidence that these ships actually exist by way of purchase. So there is no way to conclude that you're an African. And what they're talking about when they're referring to the Middle Passage is the American Indian slave trade, right? And I talked about the different slave trades that took place in the Americas. And I talked about how a few of the slave trades in America, other than the European slave trade, and white people aren't European. I discussed this. These people come from Khazarian nations, Armenia, Turkestan, Javakistan, all of those. It's not a part of Europe. They migrated into Eurasia and Europe in the 1600s and acclimated themselves into the Anglo-Saxon nation. They did not eradicate the Anglo-Saxon nation, they just stole the name. The same way they stole being Scottish, Irish, Portuguese, Spanish. That is not their original names. They are not the original European. According to the coats of arms and heraldics coats of arms, the original Europeans were all black. The white people that we see today do not belong to that people group. They are Czech Republic, Armenian, Turkish, Kazakhstan, Khazar. They belong to those nations, but they do not belong to Europe. So anyway, I digress. I wanted to go on. I wanted to give you that and then go on. I'm sorry if I'm long-winded, but we got to explain this so that you guys understand the lies that are being told to you, even when people are trying to tell you some truth. Once they implement a lie, it turns everything they say into a lie. So I wanted to get this historically accurate, because he's telling the truth biblically, but he's incorrect historically. Also, the Spanish Inquisition was also the exiling of Hebrews from Portugal and Spain, and they were shipped to Africa. This is why the Portuguese and the Spanish were so familiar with certain parts of Africa, because they had been exiled to Africa during the time of the Spanish Inquisition. And then if you read the book of Hebrew, when they talk about the pilgrims, in the book of Hebrews, go check out the book of Hebrews. Well, I could read it for you guys on my phone.
To 2000.
I don't know where I left off because I was explaining it, didn't even realize I wasn't recording. So I wanted to just explain to you guys what he's about to say right now.
Recognize what it really is. So let's get into the evidence. Let me take you back to 1452. Pope Nicholas V issues a papal bull called Dum Diversas. It authorized the King of Portugal to enslave any Saracens, pagans, and unbelievers, code language for African.
Okay, so that's where I wanted to stop it. I didn't know I wasn't recording before, so I'm going to have to explain this again. So on my phone, that's separate from where I'm on my tablet, I was arguing with AI Overview, because what I know, I researched the Papa Bull, the Dum Diversas do not list any geographical location on it. Does not list Africa, West Africa, at any part. It does not list any regions at all in the Papa Bull. And I explained this to AI, and this is what AI said to me. It said, you are absolutely right to point out that the word Africa does not appear in the text of the Dum Diversas. The document used very broad, geographical, unlimited language, authorizing King Alfonso VI or the Fifth to subdue pagans, right? And we know that pagans means non-believer. And we know that anybody from any ethnicity cannot believe in a language. So when it tells you code word or synonymous for African or West African, they're lying to your face. The word pagan has nothing to do with any geographical ethnicity, nation. The word pagan just means non-believer, right? Somebody doesn't believe in the same religion as you. That's what all those sacras, I forgot what he said, but it all means sacrosands, pagans. It all means the same thing, non-believers. And it had nothing to do with any ethnicity, race, or anything like that. So they were just lying. And they do stuff like that to you to try to convince you that this is accurate history, and it's not. And so we're going to go on.
And mourn over her, for no man buyeth their merchandise any more. The merchandise of gold and silver and precious stones and of pearls and fine linen and purple and silk and scarlet and all thyine wood and all manner vessels of ivory and all manner vessels of most precious wood and of brass and iron and marble and cinnamon and odors and ointments and frankincense and wine and oil and fine flour and wheat and beasts and sheep and horses and chariots and slaves and souls of men. Did you catch that? Slaves and souls of men are listed as merchandise in Babylon's inventory.
Right.
John the Revelator saw the transatlantic slave trade 1,000.
Again, the transatlantic slave trade is fake. When you hear it, I love Kamario Ahu because I don't got a better word to tell you than what he says. Dodge the hijack. The hijack is that you are African and the transatlantic slave trade is real. We've been over that. They have no continuation, embarkation, disembarkation record manifest. They have no bill of sales. Okay? They have no facts or no information to prove that you are an African immigrant bought here by way of such transatlantic slave trade. They're missing documents. You are not an African. Either you are American Indian or you are descendants of American Indians mixed with black Europeans. Again, white people are not European. They are Armenian, Turkish, Khazarian. They acclimated themselves into Europe in the 1600s. I repeat myself so that black people can understand. You aren't just American Indian, and some of us aren't American Indian at all. And I know that's hard to face, but it is the truth. Some of us are full-blooded Europeans. It depends on how your family made it, right? Some of you are Scottish, Irish. These people are not white people, okay? I told you, they acclimated themselves into the Anglo-Saxons in the 1600s via naturalization laws. Via naturalization laws in Europe in the 1600s. And so this is how they got into these family bloodlines. They were not originally. So anyway, going on, we're going to bypass the high.
Shortest book in the Old Testament, mostly ignored, 21 verses about Edom's judgment and Jacob's restoration. Verse 15. For the day of the Lord is near upon all the heathen, as thou hast done it shall be done unto thee. Thy reward shall return upon thine own head. That word reward, it's not a blessing, it's boomerang justice. What you did to others comes back to you with compound interest. Edom in prophetic typology represents the systems and nations that oppressed Jacob, the scattered, enslaved.
Yes. So Edom is one of the people, and I want to also stand correct who Edom is. Edom can be some descendants of white folk, but Edom is Jacob's twin brother, which means that Edom is black. Edom is not some pale-faced guy. Pale-faced people, most of them, that come from Turkestan and Mongolia, these people are descendants of Japheth. Those are Gentiles. And so, therefore, that bloodline that they're referring to with Esau, yes, Esau did mix in with the Canaanites. Esau did, I believe, mix in with Gentiles as well. But it's not just Esau that's going to be recompensed. It's every enemy of Israel. Because if you look to the book of Isaiah, where it talks about they have taken crafty counsel, consulted against I'll do you one better. I'll read it to you. All right, so This is Psalms 83:3 and onward, right? So you can go ahead and read it yourself, but I'm going to read it to you. It says, they have taken crafty counsel against thy people and consulted against thy hidden ones. They have said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. Now, I gave this example in a previous video, but I'm going to do it here because I'm explaining this and rectifying the historical falsehoods and whatnot. So as so-called black people in America, we are a people who have no nation. Every nation has a represented flag. We are a people without a flag, without its own language, and land have been infiltrated, right? This is biblical, right? As they have taken crafty counsel. Who has taken crafty counsel? Well, it's gonna talk about the different peoples in below, but I'm going to give it to you in real time. So black people have been cut off from being a nation. They call us misnomers, such as African American, because they don't have any geographical or any documentation that can trace you to Africa. They call you misnomers. They call you legal terms and descriptor terms. They call you Negro, colored, black. All right, African American is the misnomer. They call you a byword, right? They talked about in the Bible of people who are called a byword. The byword is nigger, calling you a byword. Everybody got the name. If you go from here to Africa, the little boy I Show Speed went to Africa and was called the nigger, right? You're a byword. You're cut off from being a nation. You have no language of your own, no land, no cities of your own. You don't have a flag of your own. You are not a people. They don't call you a nation. They call you misnomers, two nations mixed. African American was created and invented in 1988. Prior to that, nobody was ever called an African American. As a matter of fact, prior to that, nobody had ever made two countries as a nationality. So there weren't no European American, there wasn't no Asian American. So African American is a misnomer. There was never until 1988 such a term ever given to anybody on earth. Right? So that's when it was created. So you were cut off from being a nation, a people. Who is a nation? Who is a people? Well, people who are from Nigeria, they don't call themselves African. They say they're Nigerian. That's a land, right? Nigeria is a land. And the people who are from the land Nigeria are called Nigerian, right? The land is called Kenya. The people from Kenya are Kenyan. Chinese people come from China. That's a people who are a people in a nation. You understand me? African American does not exist. It's not a nation. Right? There is no people called African American prior to 1988. So anybody that was born in 1987 and before that, who were they? If the term African American did not exist up until 1988, why would they take 369 years to classify you as an African if that's always where they got you from in the first place? They could have just said that. Right? They would have led with that. But they led with descriptor terms, Negro, colored, and black. Well, the Southeast Asian slave trade took place. Why didn't they call them yellow, yellow, and yellow? They're missing manifest. They're missing anything that could corroborate this false identity of African American. Right? Let's keep going. And who is they? The Gentiles, white folk, right? The Mongolians, these Southeast Asians, right? The Canaanites. These people have come under one accord. These Native American groups, Gentiles, they have came against you. Anytime we get ready to tell and show people the evidence we have to support that we are American Indian and support our identity with factualized, evidential, archival proof, they still deny you your identity. You see them come up in comment sections, always fighting with you. These same people, these same nations that we're going to biblically list are the same nations in modern time who come against you, knowing your identity and saying who you are, matter of factly, even with evidential proof. So let's go back into the scripture, right? It says they have said, come and let us they have said, just trying to see if we still recording, they have said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel be no more in remembrance. So if the name of Israel was to be no more in remembrance, then who are those? Hold on. I would close my window if I had AC, believe me. So anyway, it says that the name of Israel be no more in remembrance. So if you hear people calling themselves Israel, so if their name Israel is not supposed to be in remembrance, then who the hell are those people? Right? That's the question you should ask. For they have consulted together. Has anybody consulted against those people and told them they couldn't be Israel? No, right? But you as a black people, you know, anytime they see a black person claim to be Hebrew, or those Israelites, see how angry everybody, you just steal. You see how much opposition we get the moment we say we're Israel? They cut you off from being a people anymore in remembrance. Remember, the Bible, it doesn't just mean, the Bible, I don't know how to say it. My sister says it better than me, so I won't even reference it. But it's basically self-explanatory when it says they're cutting you off from being a people. Even the opposition that you get when you say who you are is the proof that the Bible's prophecy is fulfilled. That's what I was trying to say, right? So it says, for they have consulted together with one consent that they are confederate against thee. Groups of people are confederate against you. Right? They're saying they're saying they, and I already named the people, right? These nations have come under one confederacy to say, cut them off. Do not let them remember who they are. They cannot be these people. We won't, because that is the end of us if these people know who they are. So they say, don't let them, by no means, don't let them. And that's what's been implemented. This is what you're seeing today. And then they start listing on Psalms 83 and 6, where it goes, the tabernacle, and it's gonna, I gave you the people, because some of Edom is in Africa too. Okay? Ishmaelites, some of them is in Eurasia, Asia, over there in different parts of Africa, different parts of Europe now, whatnot, whoop-de-whoop. So I'm going to tell you in biblical terms who these people are after I already listed them. So it says the tabernacle of Edom, the Ishmaelites of Moab. It says of Moab, the Hagarenes. It says Jabal, Ammon, Amalek, the Philistines, right? So you got the nations of Ishmael, who's the son of Abraham, right? You got children from Canaan, children from Esau, children from Lot. Lot's children is a Moabite, Amalekite. The Hagarenes is again Ishmael's mama. Jabal, Ammon, Amalek, the Philistines, right? Came from Canaan, or Ham's children, and inhabitants of Tyre. Ashur also, right, joined with them. They have hope in the children of Lot, right? Salah, of course it says. And so then it tells them how to destroy, it pleads with God to destroy these people, how he destroyed other nations who came against Israel prior. So that's just to give you a biblical and historical perspective, so you can see it in real time of who Israel is and who's been against Israel this entire time, in real time and in biblical time, to cut you off from being a people. Let's go on.
God. And Edom always gets comfortable, always thinks the kingdom belongs to them, always forgets that Jacob has a comeback clause written in blood. Verse 18, and the house of Jacob shall be a fire, and the house of Joseph a flame, and the house of Esau for stubble, and they shall kindle in them, and devour them, and there shall not be any remaining of the house of Esau, for the Lord hath spoken.
Right.
You don't negotiate with fire.
Right. So, whoever Esau is in real time will be decimated off the face of the earth. They won't even be in remembrance. So this right here means that white people are not Esau, right? Remember, Esau and Jacob are twin brothers, identical, right? I'm not saying that they can't have Esau's blood. I'm saying that they don't, right? We already looked through the biblical context. I'm sorry, y'all. I just try to keep myself cool because my AC don't work. But white folk in America and in Europe, they belong to Japheth. They are Gentiles. They are not Hebrew, and they are not of, they could be descendants of Esau, but I don't want to tell you a lie, something I don't know. I'm not going to tell you. I know that Esau and Jacob are identical twin brothers. That's why Jacob was able to hold on to the heel of Esau, okay? So I explained that about Esau and Jacob in another video.
Bargain with flames. You get out of the way or you burn. But let me show you something they buried.
Oh, it's hot.
Amos chapter 9, verses 11 through 12. In that day will I raise up the tabernacle of David that is fallen, and close up the breaches thereof.
Right.
And I will raise up his ruins, and I will build it as in the days of old, that they may possess the remnant of Edom and of all the heathen, which are called by my name, saith the
Heathen
Lord,
can just mean non-believer as
that
well.
doeth this. The tabernacle of David wasn't a building. It was a worship system where the Ark of the Covenant sat without a veil. No separation between God and his people. Raw access. That's what's being restored. And who's possessing the remnant of Edom? The ones who were possessed, the ones who were merchandise, the ones who sang by the rivers of Babylon. Psalm.
You have to understand, there's a passage in the Bible I also want to read to you. Going back into the word, right? And I'm going to give reference in historical time and biblical time. And I hope I make sense, so bear with me. So the book of Joel 3:6-8. The children also of Judah and the children of Jerusalem have ye sold unto the Grecians, that ye might remove them far from their borders. Right? Now, I had to do some research, right? Because you want to research who these people are so that you can understand who they are talking to, what they are talking about, and what historical events prove that this took place. So let's start off with the Philistines. The Philistines Mizraim belongs to Ham. So it says that the Philistines, Ham, this is the Egyptians. So the Mizraim is the Egyptians. So it says these Egyptians sold the children of Judah to the Grecians. The Grecians are Gentiles, right? So let me put this in a biblical perspective, in a historical perspective, so you can fully understand who we're talking about. These Egyptian people, right? And I'm going to go based off custom and culture that I saw on the walls of the Pharaoh. So we accurately say who people are and not who these fake people are. Because a lot of time these fake people will camouflage themselves in and say they the real people. So who are they talking about when they're referring to Mizraim? Well, according to the custom, the cultures, the hair traditions, the way the style of dress, the way they wear their hair, the way they still do it to a modern time, these Egyptians who are also cut off from just who were punished for disobeying God as well and went into captivity are the so-called Ethiopians. I know people like, oh, Ethiopians are not the children of Israel. Ethiopians are Hamites who belong to Mizraim, who are the original pharaohs of Egypt. They still have the hair custom cultures, the curling of the hair with the stick, the butter on the top of the head. They still do all this. If you go to Oromo, Ethiopia, and various parts of Ethiopia, and you look at the customs and cultures of each individual Ethiopian people, they all got the same culture and custom as the pharaohs of Egypt to this day. Same people. Okay? Who are the Grecians? Right? I wish you could see my phone because this is where I'm reading it from. The Grecians, Japheth children, right? Noah and more specifically the sons of Javan, right? So the children that are of Japheth, right? These white folk, some of these Turkish, Armenian type people that they talking about. some of these Mongolians, these people are descendants of Japheth, right? And you can go check out the chronological Russian chronological history, chronology, and the Russian and Median Wars, and there's 7 volumes, but this is volume 1, right, where it breaks down the different people who belong to, in modern times, who belong to Japheth. Okay, the confusion is when they start using biblical names of Shem instead of saying who they are in modern time, right? Did a video on that process of elimination. So y'all can go check that video out as well. But going back into it, Mizraim, which were these Ethiopians, right, in modern day time, sold you to these so-called white people of today. Sold you out to them, right, of today, right? And this happened, again, these people lived among us. We talk about a lot of the American Indian Wars. We talk about how, I want you to understand, Canaan is not just people that are in Africa, right? Canaan also, at one point in time, Canaan, Japheth, and Shem all lived amongst each other, right? So Canaan, some of his descendants did stay in both Asia and the Americas, right? When they left, I don't know. They ain't about to tell you no lie. But what I can tell you is that at one point in time, historically, they were all in one country together. And so some of the Canaanitish bloodlines are some of these I want to say some of these Asiatic groups that you think are some of these Asiatic groups is what I was getting at. There's an extensive, I forgot the guy's name. I wish I could shout him out, but I forgot his name. Maybe I could plug in his channel where he goes over this information. But anyway, I just wanted to give you a perspective, a historical or modern day perspective of who is who and who sold who to whom, right? So anyway, I digress. Let's go on.
137. There we sat down, yea, we wept when we remembered Zion. That wasn't just a sad song. It was a war chant disguised as a lament. If I forget thee, O Jerusalem, let my right hand forget her cunning. If I do not remember thee, let my tongue cleave to the roof of my mouth. If I prefer not Jerusalem above my chief joy. They were preparing to go back. They were keeping the memory alive in enemy territory. You don't sing that kind of song unless you believe the exile is temporary. And here's what connects all of this. Every exile in Scripture had an expiration date. 70 years in Babylon, 400 years in Egypt. The curse in Deuteronomy 28 leads directly to restoration in Deuteronomy 30. God doesn't leave his...
But I also want to say, again, shout out to Camario for the term. You're going to have to dodge a hijack again because they're going to talk about the curse of Ham. And the curse of Ham has nothing to do with you, according to Zondervan Pictorial Dictionary, right? So we're going to read that. So I hope I did not sorry y'all, if I wasn't recording.
Relations, for such a time as this, that same God is positioning you right now. Let me take you to a place they erased from the maps. Tulsa, Oklahoma, 1921, Greenwood District.
All right, so I wanted to talk about the erasure too. And I want black people to understand how all these events took place right here in America. It wasn't just, it was not just one event, one time, one place. This happened in different states throughout the U.S. So they got you looking over to the Africa, but right here is where you've been reclassified. Right here is where you lost your identity. Right here is where your lands have been, you know how they said the Gentiles trotting down Jerusalem in the book of, in the book of Maccabees. And in the book of Maccabees, how Jerusalem was trotting down by the Gentiles. Well, Tulsa is not the only land, and I know you guys noticed, that was trodden down by the Gentiles. It was many states that were burned down in Manhattan, South Carolina, Union County, Pennsylvania, St. Louis, Memphis, Tennessee. Just if you go throughout history, I'm sorry if y'all heard a little bit of the music. You know, when you telling the truth, Satan, it stir him up. So he get into folk and they be doing extracurricular activity because he don't like the truth. You know what the Bible say, if, you know, that Satan is, the devil is a liar. So he can't take truth. He always got to bring in disruption however he can anytime the truth is being told. He will have people show out and do silly things to make loud noises so that you can't get the truth out there. This is just Satan at his hand, you know. He a lie. And if the devil is a lie and God is the truth, then Satan will not prevail. So that lie won't prevail. You're going to get this whether Satan like it or not. But going on to say what I was saying, Tulsa, Oklahoma was not the only state that was burned down and had things built over it and erased for black people. It also happened in Palm Springs, California. Like I said, you can go check out their channel too, which is at Let's Turn It Up World, or Let's Turn It Up World, when she went to Palm Springs and she was talking about how these white people literally went and burned up these black people's bustling community and built over it a stupid museum. And this is a constant thing that went on, the burning down of black communities and building things over it, right? And then erasing it off the map to not exist. This is another further erasure to remove black people, so-called black people, from their identity in the lens. Again, I don't stress this enough. Everything that is biblically, that it says in the Bible that they say happened to black people, did not happen in Africa, but happened right here in America, right? And the history supports this. And we're going over the history, right, that supports this.
35 square blocks of black-owned businesses, banks, hotels, theaters, schools, hospitals. They called it black.
And to let y'all all know, yes, black people owned all of these things. And this is how I'm going to also kill your transatlantic African slave trade. If we were a people who were branded, beaten, and whipped that came straight from Africa, when would we ever understand how to build up buildings, infrastructures of our own? When you see us living in any huts, anytime you see us impoverished, that is in the 1800s, late 1800s, after they had made us refugees in different states. Remember, they burned down our banks, our cities. This is Tulsa, Oklahoma is only Tulsa. I know I'm saying it. I got a lisp. I know I'm saying it wrong, but you get what I'm saying. It's only one of the many times they have burned down black people's cities, stolen the land, and displaced us, right? So anytime you saw us living in huts and stuff, this was in the late 1800s, after Reconstructions, when they were implementing the Jim Crow law. This was not in the 1600s. I know they like to lie to y'all a lot, and one of the biggest lies they do is mixed what they did to you in the 1800s Jim Crow era with a false history of the transatlantic slave trade in the 1600s that never took place. When they enslaved you, it's during the time of the Jim Crow era through the reclassification. And through reclassification, they made you not a free person. That's what they did. They gave you the title that made you a slave and then beat into your head a slave mentality, and a new slave identity is what they gave you. Because many of your ancestors were not even enslaved. That's why they were able to invent, build, become architects to build and draw up whole fucking blueprints of cities. They were not slaves. These people can't be emancipated in 1865 and have communities that are bustling and built up in 1700s. You can go and Google research the cities and buildings and churches and mausoleums and theaters and all this stuff that black people had even in the 1700s, bustling, technologically advanced communities and cities all throughout the even prior to that, 1600s, 1500s. This stuff is documented, and what they do is they take the 1800s Jim Crow era and try to stretch it into the 1600s. That is a lie. I already told you the transatlantic slave trade is a fake, fabricated hoax. It is not facts, nothing. The slavery is a mental institution. It's a mental, what's the name of the mind? I had the word for it, but couldn't think of it. But it's a mental, it's basically a mental trap or a mental control of the mind. It is not an actual legitimate transatlantic slave trade. They gave you conceptual art, and they gave you a narrative. They showed you videos, pictures, movies, tell you to imagine it in school. They give you all these conceptual arts, but they can never give you factualized, evidentiary bill of sales to prove any of this historical narrative. They don't have any information to prove this. All they want you to do is, by way of telling you sad, soppy stories, is to believe the narrative. That's conceptual art. So you gotta, again, Kamario Ahu, thank you for it, dodge the hijack, right? All of the events that happen to you biblically happen to you right here on American soil. They changed your identity, cut you off from being a people, called you a byword, burned down your Jerusalem, was trodden down by the Gentile, burned down your cities, lynched you, killed you, shot you, imprisoned you, and make you a POW in your land, take you to foreign land, right? Liberia, Cabo Verde, Sierra Leone, right? And parts of Europe. Well, some of us was already in Europe, but still, they took some of you, the American Indians, and misplaced you even on your own land, okay? North America, South America, right? Some of you in Canada, right? The Caribbean islands. These people knew what they were doing, and they knew who they were looking for, and they know who you are to this day. That's what this is the reason why I'm doing this video. Everything that you thought happened to you in Africa happened to you right here on this soil and nowhere else. And in Europe. A lot of our ancestors kicked out, the exile, Spanish Inquisition, Scottish was taken over, whatnot, whoop-de-whoop, but you get what I'm saying, right? It all happened here. It's where even the black Europeans and the black American Indians were all reclassified to Negro, color, and black, right? And then African American. So all of that happened right here on this soil, nowhere else.
Wall Street, wealthiest black community in America. On May 31st, a white mob deputized by the city, supported by the National Guard, dropped incendiary bombs from private planes onto black homes and businesses. They machine-gunned families running with their children. They burned it all. Over 300 dead. 10,000 homeless. Not a single person was ever prosecuted. Insurance companies refused to pay claims. And here's the part that should make your blood run cold. The city buried the bodies in unmarked mass graves and built over them. They literally paved paradise and put up a parking lot.
Right. And it's in this, again, I go back to saying this happened in Manhattan as well, right? We know about what they did with the Grand Central Park. The Central Park, I don't know why I said Grand. Central Park was built over a black community. And we know that they completely burned it, bombed it, tore it down, and built, a whole park over these black people's land. So again, I don't stress this enough to you, black people in America. You are not an African, right? You are not an African, and everything that biblically happened to you, that is written in scripture, from Deuteronomy to the book of Psalms to every part of that book, happened to you right here in America, right here, nowhere else. Your people were taken out of the Americas and placed out of the America and placed in Africa, right? That's Cabo Verde, Liberia, Sierra Leone. They were kicked out. Many of them fled. Many of them fled. Many of them got, murdered. Some of them that used to be in Asia got kicked out of Asia, sent right over there to Africa. I did a video before with this white guy who got a lot of good history, and he himself was revealing to black people the truth, and he showed how these Mongolians, right, who are now in Southeast Asia, are not direct descendants to the original Southeast Asian populations that used to be there, right? They are not the original. Okay, those people that you see today belong to Japheth. They are Mongolians who infiltrated. I told you, white people in America and Mongolians, these people, they're so-called Native American, those people do not belong to Europe, right? They do not belong to Europe, and they do not belong to Asia. They belong to Turkestan, Armenia, Javakistan, Khazaria. Those are those people. They are not the original Europeans, and they are not the original Asians. And the people that you see today are in fact they're Gentiles. There's some of them came over and infiltrated Canaanite people. Some of the Canaanites were also conquered and shipped. Again, that's Satan. Some of the Canaanites were also kicked out of Asia and shipped into Africa, right? And that's why you have this guy. I'm gonna do a small short, I think, of the video of some of these people, like the Sans people who used to be in Asia, who were forced out of Asia by the Mongolian Empire and then shipped over there or fled to Africa. And some of these, I can't even remember the name right now, but you get the picture of what I'm trying to say. These people came into Asia and into Europe and into the Americas in the 1600s and laid siege, slaughter, and killed and displaced a lot of Hebrews and a lot of children from Ham as well, right? So and even some of Ham's kids did the same thing, coupled with these people. They began to allies in more newer, like, I know I'm saying newer time, but newer time, even though it was like 1800s, whatnot, or whatever. Again, we talked about the crafty council in Psalms 83, that these people came under one accord and one confederacy. So they stopped fighting with each other and said, let's come against Israel. Now that we know where Israel is, we're going to attack Israel on all four fronts, and we're going to bring into fruition the downfall of Israel, and then we're going to erase Israel, just as the Bible say. Remember, when they were crucifying Jesus Christ, some of them were saying, yeah, let's do to Jesus what it said that would be done to Jesus as the Bible. So yes, Satan does know the Bible very well, and Satan will use the scripture to fulfill prophecy. Just saying, it is even written. So anyway, I digress. Let's go on.
2020, nearly a century later, they started digging, and they found them.
Right.
Rows of coffins, men, women, children, still there, still waiting for someone to say their names.
Right.
Now tell me that's not a prophetic picture.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me that's not Ezekiel chapter 37. Son of man, can these bones live? The whole world thought Greenwood was dead, but God keeps receipts, and those bones are about to prophesy. Watch this pattern. Exodus chapter 1. Pharaoh sees the Israelites multiplying and gets nervous.
Okay.
Behold, the people of
So I had to pause, and the reason why I had to pause is the reason why this is biblically accurate right now, in this current day event. And when it said this, I had like a aha type moment, because right now what you see the government doing to black folk, now that they see that black people are awakening, they told white people and other races that this was a woke agenda. There is no woke agenda. Woke just means to come into enlightenment. It's the same thing as Illuminati. It means because anybody can be woke, including white folk. So it's not an agenda, because anybody can realize the truth, because that's what woke means. It means to be enlightened to a truth that you did not know before, and out of nowhere, it's like a taste came into your mouth that made you learn or desire to learn truth. That is what woke means. So it is not some agenda or political agenda to do something to white folk. I don't know why you guys think stuff like that. No. Woke is just coming into a realization of who you are, historical contributions in history of self that one did not know, or history period that one did not know prior. Right? That's all woke is. And it's so funny because you see the scramble that's going on in the White House to try to find avenues and ways to stop the awakening of black people from knowing who they are, even from them releasing the Epstein files, even from them trying to start a war. All of this stuff is a distraction so that people don't get the truth. Right? And that is what they don't want. They don't want, because what did the Bible say? The word says that Esau is the beginning. Esau is the end, and Jacob is the beginning of that which comes after, right? I'm sorry, God, if I'm paraphrasing. And so that means there's more to come, right? Esau's reign has to be done. It has to be, the fulfillment of the Gentiles must take place for Israel to then come into this enlightenment and come into the authority that God is going to bring them in. This is what's happening. So they're trying to find ways to combat this. They're trying to find ways. That's why they you see them trying to implement certain strategy, National Guard, and closing up the historical records and books, and you see them pushing harder with the transatlantic slave trade narrative. You see them defunding HSBCUs, just targeting us, cutting all this stuff. They're targeting you, trying to get you into some form of servitude. It's all to make it so that you stop knowing. You stop, because they understand knowledge is power. When you were ignorant of who you are, they prevailed, seeing how they cannot stop what's going on, because God said it in the book of Isaiah that he said, people who do the weather, who predict the weather, he said they won't be able to stop. He said he said in the Bible, you won't even be able to, cause they do witchcraft. Y'all know they do witchcraft. He said you won't be able to conjure up. KKK is a lot of part of witchcraft. The Grand Wizard, he was a witch. And the Bible said that in the book of Isaiah that these people will not be able to conjure up anything to stop what he is about to do to them as a result of what they have done to us, who are biblically and fulfill prophecy of Israel, matter-of-factly, to the T, dot it, sign it, flip it, flop it, lay it to the side. We literally, and I'm talking about, if you go through what they say, line upon line, precept upon precept, here a little, there a little. If you go through that word, you find that we match it to the T. Every scripture, everything. And I read this and they know already. They know already. Never assume these people do not know who you are. They know. They know who everybody is. They got the skeletons. They did the DNA test. They know. Best believe they know. They wanted to find you. Once they found you and said, oh, these people are Israel right here. This is Israel. Yep, we got them. All right, now that we got them, what are we going to do? They're cursed of their God, right? So this is what we're doing. This is not Ham's curse, right? I wanted to get into that, but I didn't want to get into that before he said his piece. So I'm going to go on.
Children of Israel are more and mightier than we. Come on, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply. And it come to pass that when there falleth out any war... And
again, I'm talking modern time. Right now, what they're doing in Congress is dealing wisely with you. They already erased your identity, seeing you come into enlightenment, seeing you not only come into enlightenment, doing things you never quite did. You've done before, of course, because the history's there, but, you've had a 100-year setback, right? You had a 100-year setback, or 100 or some odd year setback, where now you are buying land, you are telling your children, you're educating your children, you are back doing things that you were not doing before. You're even buying and selling with each other. This is unheard of, especially since for the past 100 years, they have taught us to be individuals and to fight with one another, both male and female, female to female, male to male, children to parent, whatnot, whoop-de-whoop. And so for a long time, we were not truly buying with each other. But there was a study, and I wish I could show the clip of this black guy just saying, this is I believe a couple of weeks ago, how black people and even other minority groups and even white folk who are saying, nah, if black people got a product to sell, we will definitely buy. And so they're finding that black people are supporting each other more. And to be honest, I'm going to keep it 100 with you. As a so-called black person in America, I know factually that prior to these times, we did not really support each other like that. Yes, we did, like baby fat, things like that. We did support it, but not to the grandeur that we are doing it now. Not even by far. You know, we are making each other millionaires, to be honest, and even more than that. You know what I mean? So this right now is unprecedented, and this is literally prophecy fulfilling itself right here in your face in America. I'm just saying.
They join also unto our enemies and fight against us, and so get them up out of the land. So he enslaves them.
Right. Okay, I'm gonna cut them off again. You know how they're trying to get you to say that you're African or African descent? This is their way to move you now. Remember, this is their way to now move you, right? They have to displace you. They have to move you, create chaos around you to slow down the knowledge. So they're trying to get you, now they want to, mind you, for many years they said, we will not give them reparations. We don't care, because they always knew the transatlantic slave trade was fake in the first place. And they don't want to pay you for a fake event. They don't even want to pay you for real events, let alone fake ones. So they were like, no, we're not giving you reparations. But now that we are finding out who we are in America, they're like, okay, reparations now. I told you they're scrambling. Reparation now. The incentive to reparation is to get an African nation to say, yeah, we were, this is your FBAs, yeah, we were enslaved in America, and you to acclimate yourself under the guise of being an African so that they can then move you out of America. This displacement, right? All this stuff got to come to fruition. You have to understand this. So these are the tactics that you're going to see and are seeing fulfilled biblical prophecy today. Just wanted to let you know.
Them to death.
Just wanted to let you know.
Then he realizes they're still multiplying. So he escalates. I'm sorry. Had to do it again. Multiplying. This is also the reason why they have a problem with black people having sex with each other. They keep trying to depopulate your nation. This is why they implement interracial dating. Seeing you have a full Hebrew bloodline is something they do not want. So seeing a black man have sex with a black woman and produce black children, they do not want that. They do not want that full Hebrew bloodline to keep going, because that keeps the fulfillment of the prophecy. So they also infiltrate through you mixing your bloodline, right? These are all forms of infiltration that meets biblical prophecy in which he is talking about. Verse 16.
It's so
and he
obvious.
said, when you do the office of a midwife to the Hebrew women and see them upon the stools.
I'm sorry, because it's so good. I'm going to say it after.
If it be a son, then ye shall kill him. But if it be a daughter, then she shall live. Targeted infanticide.
Ooh. So, again, does this not happen to America? Let me give you perspective. Do they not shoot and gun down our men more than they do the women? They keep the women alive and shoot the black men every single time. They give them cerebral palsy or autism. And in 1999, in the 1990s, they begin to administer drugs and tell you that your 2-year-old, happened to my younger brother, tell you that your 2-year-old is emotionally disturbed, to drug him up so that he's not mentally available, right? To get those spirits in him, right? If they can't physically kill them, they kill them mentally, right? Which kills them spiritually. Right? So this is matter-of-factly what they did to my brother. And this is what they've done to black men. And Umar Johnson talks extensively about this. And we know that black women are now, for all of a sudden, black women now die more than any other race during childbirth, including our babies, right? They're killing. We saw the story, if you didn't see the story of this white woman who was breaking the legs and arms of black infants in the NICU, right? And then she gets arrested and charged, and then they release her. I mean, this stuff is prophecy fulfilled. She's going to be paid recompense, because that type of hate, you can't easily repent for, because you justified that hate in your heart. And repentance isn't just, I'm sorry, God, that, no. Repentance comes from the heart. You got to mean that, right? So good luck on her, because if she doesn't repent correctly, she's going to hell, period. I just want her to know that. But anyway, I digress.
Population control disguised as public policy.
Woo.
Now fast forward.
Amen.
1865.
That was then, and this is still now.
Black folks start building.
Right. So I'm telling you historical facts. So emancipation was not just for black people, right? Emancipation was for anyone who was not free at that time. So emancipation would include people from Czech Republic, some Southeast Asians, right? People from Armenia, Slavics. These people were also enslaved as well and would be set free from. I gotta remind you something. Slavery was abolished, foreign slavery was abolished in 1808 in America, right? So prior to that, the Southeast Asians in the early 1700s, I believe, if I'm saying that right, their slavery was abolished. They would work out their indentured for 7 years and be set free. American Indian servitude was also abolished in I believe the late to mid 1600s as well. Again, they would serve out. They tried to keep chattel slavery going, but it was ultimately eradicated. Somewhat kind of eradicated in the 17 to 1800s with these different racial groups. So any foreigner that came into America after 1808 would not be considered a slave, but an indentured, right? So there would be contracts that would be made, even though the slavery had contracts as well. But sometimes you would become a slave, if you will, by way of being a POW, a prisoner of war, or by way of being a prisoner, somebody who committed a crime, have to serve time, and you would be forced to work off whatever time that you had and complete that. And if you were allowed to be set free, you would be set free. Okay, and I believe it was always like 7 years or whatnot. So yeah, just to give perspective, I hope that.
Start voting, start accumulating land. By 1910, black Americans own 15 million acres of farmland.
We own more than that. Remember, we are American Indian. It's just the only ones they want to count. And as a matter of fact, through reclassification acts in the 1924 Racial Integrity Act, reclassifying you as a freedman, so they did not have to honor the old settler treaties. Thank you, I forgot his name, Sutton Green. So they did not have to honor the old settler treaties. You had millions of acres of land, over 300 million at that. And so by this time, after I believe all the way up until 1910, we still had 19 million acres, which they will owe us just counting the 19 million acres would total out to $369 billion worth of land that they have documented. Well, they have all of it documented, but they have you classified differently to move the land around. And that's the reason why I'm saying it like that. As the new reclassification, they have you documented with 19 million acres of land that was taken from you and confiscated, which total up to about more or less $369 billion.
15 million.
And that's also not to mention the amount of money accumulated from the resources that were on the natural resources that gave them generational wealth, whether it be oil, fruits, vegetables, whatever it is that they gain wealth on that land from. So it's much more than $369 billion.
Then the convict lease system starts. Black men arrested for vagrancy, for being unemployed and leased to plantations, mines.
And again, I want you to know that they are not talking about the 1600s. They are talking about Jim Crow, late 1800s. Again, they're good at making you think that they're talking about the fake transatlantic African slave trade when they're really just talking about the 1800 Jim Crow era, right? Farming was still a thing in the 1800s, right? It's what they tried to do now when Donald Trump had deported all illegal immigrants who were working on the farms. White farmers did not have a workforce, so they tried to implement getting black people on their farms, and they're still trying to do that right till this day. Right now, after all of this, they're trying to get black people on these farms. Well, this is what they were doing after they burn your town down and you become a refugee. All the stolen farms that they now have, they're saying, well, who's gonna work this, because we don't know how to farm. I'm talking about white folk. Who's gonna work this, because we don't really know how to farm. We worked in lumber yards. Some of us picked cotton, but you know, who's gonna work this? So once they got over these farms and lumber yards and all of our businesses and all of our land and stuff, and you were displaced, you had to then make an income by going, like my grandfather, who had to leave Union County, South Carolina, and go to a different part of South Carolina to work because he was ran off of his land, right? So he became a refugee who no longer lived in his house and his home, who had now living in a shack in a shed because that was the only resource that was available. So when you see these photos of black people in shacks and sheds, these are refugees whose homes were burned to a fucking crisp, whose businesses were torn up. This wasn't the 1600s. This was the 1800s, okay? This was the late 1800s and 1900s, and sometimes, and this burning of our cities did not just stop in the 1900s, early 1900s. This happened all the way into 1980s and even into the 2000s. I want y'all to know that. Like, this did not just stop. They are still advocating in certain black communities to put roads and railroads in the middle of our towns as if there's no other land for them to go through. But it's to take from you, and that's the whole goal. This is prophecy. They use the Bible to fulfill prophecy, not understanding that one day they're going to be recompensed every evil deed. They're not understanding. I was talking about this and made a video the other day, how racism and white supremacy is the Achilles heel for white people and will be their own undoing. And I've showed them time and time again through the videos that I make. I told you, Satan got to disrupt when you tell the truth. Right? I told them time and time again how they will be recompensed every single thing they have done. And I showed them ways where they're already reaping what they have sown on this earth. I already showed them. I do that in a video. I already told them, but they're hard of hearing. So, you know, the Bible says, he who have ears, let them hear, right? Heed the word of God. But I digress.
Factories, slavery by another name. Right. Then the lynchings.
Right.
Over 4,000 documented between 1,877 and 1,000.
Excuse me. Sorry. I need you to spit. I'll wait for her to go so you don't think I'm spitting. Okay. So even with the lynchings, you know what they say, the reason why they were lynching black people is because, as it was said in the Bible, that a lynched man is a cursed man because Jesus Christ was hung on a tree. And so they do that to curse you. Again, they're going to be recompensed. The very same thing as it says in the book of Isaiah, that our enemies have done to us will be done unto them.
150 public executions, families forced to watch, bodies left hanging as warnings. Then the redlining. Federal Housing Administration.
And believe me, this still happens today. Anytime you see an unarmed black man or woman killed, this is a warning. This is them trying to scare you, trying to warn you to not get up into the world, not try to be somebody, not to love yourself, not to like yourself, not to know truth. This is, again, this is all biblical. Everything he's telling you, and he's letting you know that this is biblical. The lynchings that they do, that they did then, they do with police brutality, white vigilantes, other model minority groups who come into your community, even sometimes your own people, they used as a way to hurt or harm you. These are all the same kind of lynchings.
1934 draws maps in red ink around black neighborhoods and declares them too risky for loans.
Right.
Generational wealth.
I talked about how in the book of Maccabees, how they said that Jerusalem was trodden down by the Gentiles. Oh, excuse me. Jerusalem was trodden down by the Gentiles, and when Israel went to lament, went to mourn the loss of Jerusalem and it being tore up by the Gentiles, they opened up their law book, and the Gentiles had painted the likeness of themselves on Moses, Jesus, and we see that today. Who did Jesus look like? Right? The Gentiles. Right? Who does Moses? So anytime you see a movie about any historical figure of the Bible, they're all in the likeness of the Gentile. Right? So this is even fulfilling biblical prophecy even today. Right? Your lands have been trodden down, burned to the ground, destroyed, decimated. Right? And just seeing even in Europe, where you used to be kings and you used to be queens and you used to be chiefs, and now Gentile nations are the chiefs of America, and Gentile nations are the kings of Europe, and Gentile nations are the emperor of Asia, right? These people have come under one confederacy to cut you off from being a people, right? So it's literally, I can't even just stop. It flows like water how these people fill biblical prophecy here right now. Even in this time, it is being fulfilled in the Americas and so forth and so on. So I digress.
Killed with a crayon. Then the highways. Interstate system cuts through the heart of every thriving black neighborhood in America, destroys them, displaces them, calls it progress.
Right.
Then the drugs. Crack cocaine floods black communities in the 1,980 seconds while the CIA looks the other way.
Right.
Then the mass incarceration.
My armpits are sweating.
Mandatory minimums. 3 strikes. Prison labor paying 13 cents an hour. Slavery by another name again. You seeing the pattern? Every time black people start rising, something comes to cut them down.
Right.
That's not coincidence. That's Pharaoh's playbook.
Right.
And it means something.
Right.
It means you're dangerous. It means your prosperity is a threat.
Right.
It means they know something about you that you forgot. Let me tell you what they know.
Who you are.
You're the wild olive branch Paul talks about in Romans 11. Grafted into the tree of Israel. Not ripped, but grafted in among them, and with them partakest of the root and fatness of the olive tree. Boast not against the branches. But if thou boast, thou bearest not the root, but the root thee. That root is Abraham, the covenant, the promise. In thee shall all families of the earth be blessed. You're in that line. And Romans chapter 11 verse 25 says the blindness in part is happened to Israel until the fullness of the Gentiles be come in. When that fullness hits, the veil lifts. And everybody who's been grafted in suddenly sees who they are. Black folks scattered across the Americas, the Caribbean, all over the diaspora, waking up to the fact that their history doesn't start on a slave ship. It starts in the garden. White horses behind Yeshua on a slave ship. It starts in the garden. It runs through Abraham. It includes Exodus. It includes exile. It includes return. And it ends with them riding white horses behind Yeshua when he comes back to settle accounts.
Through the grace of God.
This is where it gets dangerous. Joel chapter 2 verse 25. And I will restore to you the years that the locust hath eaten, the cankerworm and the caterpillar and the palmer worm, my great army which I sent among you. Notice that. God takes responsibility for the devastation. He sent the locusts. He allowed the captivity. Why? Because Israel broke covenant. Deuteronomy 28 isn't just a curse. It's a consequent structure. You walk away from God, you lose his protection. The hedge comes down, the enemy comes in. But here's the redemption.
And I like the perspective that he gives. When you walk away from God, you lose the protection. And that's just like when you're a disobedient kid. Like if your parents say, you know, go to school on time, you know, go to school, get your education, stay out of the streets. And then you go into the streets and you lose the protection of your parents. And then the street take you over and you get killed. And it's not because your parent doesn't love you. It's not because because they weren't there, because you did not stay under them to be protected by. So it's going to make me cry if I keep going. So let me go ahead and let this person play.
The locusts didn't eat forever. They ate years, specific years. And God promises to restore them. Not compensate you for them. Restore them. Give them back like they never happened. That's not metaphor. That's divine mathematics. Every dollar stolen. Every acre seized. Every life cut short. Every child sold away from their mother. God's accounting department has it all. And the restoration doesn't come from Congress. It doesn't come from a reparations committee. It comes from the treasury of heaven. And when God pays, he doesn't pay minimum wage. Let me take you to 1863, January 1st. Emancipation Proclamation. Lincoln frees the slaves in Confederate states.
This is true.
Not border states, not Union states, just the states in rebellion.
I want to use the term accurately, because remember, foreign slavery was abolished in 1808 in America and reclassified as indentured servitude. So I don't know if you guys ever heard of it, and I know Camario Ahu talk extensively, and I believe Dane Calloway does too, extensively about it being I think it was Dane who said that. That it was a labor dispute. You're talking about emancipation of indentured servitude, not slavery. So you want to stay corrected about the terminology that was used after 1808. Nobody would have been a foreigner would have been a slave. You would be an indentured servant, because slavery was abolished in America in 1808. So after 1808, you would be given an indentured contract and forced to work. Right, there it is.
Meaning he freed slaves in territory he didn't control and kept them enslaved in territory he did. That's not justice. That's a military strategy. But here's what happened that most people don't know. Before the war even ended, Union General William Tecumseh Sherman issued Special Field Order Number 15, January 16th, 1865. It set aside 400,000 acres of confiscated Confederate land along the coast of South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida for formerly enslaved families.
No.
Each family would...
That, again, you gotta, as Camario Ahu says, dodge the hijack. They were giving you back land they stole from you through reclassification acts, right? Through the freedmen, the reclassification of freedmen, right? Freedmen was a reclassification. You did not give yourself freedmen. They gave you that title. They implemented in the newspaper as they did FBA online before you acclimated yourself into the title. So freedmen was a reclassification to not honor old settler treaties with your chiefs of the tribes you belong to, right? Or as individual families and farmers who owned land and houses that came from Europe, right? That acclimated themselves into American Indian tribes. Sorry, y'all. Again, you know, Satan's alive and kicking. It's too much for him. So when they're talking about these lands and they're talking about these acres, they are giving you back land, not from any slavery. Again, we already went over that. It's all fake, right? They're giving it back from what they stole from you, right? They're giving it back. 40 acres and a mule was the lands. It's less than was some of the lands that they had stolen from you through reclassification laws. But anyway, I digress.
40 acres. The army had surplus mules. They gave those too.
No. I have a newspaper article of my grandfather, and this was way back then, who owned a lot of mules. And I want you to know that a mule is a horse. Like, they're not talking about mules from mules. They're talking about horses. Back in the day, they called horses mules as well, right? So they're talking about horses. And our family had a lot of horses as well. And these horses that they were going to give you back were initially already yours, right?
And a mule. 18 months later, President Andrew Johnson reversed it, gave the land back to the Confederate landowners, kicked the black families off, erased the order like it never happened. But here's what they can't erase. The fact that the United States government acknowledged that reparations were owed. They distributed land, they had a plan, they executed it, then they stole it back. That's not ancient history. That's a legal precedent. And Leviticus chapter 25 has something to say about that. And ye shall hallow the 50th year, and proclaim liberty throughout all the land unto all the inhabitants thereof. It shall be a jubilee unto you, and ye shall return every man unto his possession, and ye shall return every man unto his family.
Right.
Jubilee economics. Every 50 years, all debts cancelled, all land returned, all slaves freed. The year of the Lord.
So he about to say, let me let him say it.
Favor. Jesus quoted it in Luke chapter 4 verse 18 when he opened the scroll in the synagogue. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he hath anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He hath sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to preach deliverance to the captives, and recovering of sight to the blind, to set at liberty them that are bruised, to preach the acceptable year of the Lord. That acceptable year is Jubilee. And if America won't declare it, God will enforce it anyway.
Right.
Now here's where the spiritual warfare gets real.
Right.
Ephesians chapter 6 verse 12.
Because I'm sorry, I had to really go in there and chime in before I get my point. Forget my point. So when he is talking about, you know, this, how the time is coming near. All right. So I talked about how the U.S. government is scattering right now because they are falling. Right? And they're scattering to figure out how to stop the fall from being so significant. And how everything he just said verbatim is what's transpiring right now. And I just got to go back and have him say
deliverance
it.
To open the scroll in the synagogue. The Spirit to set at liberty them that are bruised, to preach the acceptable year of the Lord.
That's what I was about to get at. I had to hear it again, because the land has to return back to the original owner, not these Mongolians. What America do not understand, because they are so disobedient, is if they give this land to those so-called Native Americans who they know are immigrants, who they keep trying to deport, funny enough, if they do not honor what God said to do, the rude awakening is going to fall on the head of America, because God is not telling you to give this land to foreigners. He said the rightful heir. And I know they're trying to figure out how to go around that law. They always try to remember they are dealing with you. What they say how they're clearly dealing with Israel, and they like to go around certain things because God, remember this too, God honors treaties. God will honor, not treaties, God will honor the laws of the land. So they know how to not really toy with God, because God sees everything, but if they can get you into a covenant, signing away yourselves to them. This is the FBA. This is whatever new system they're trying to bring in. It is to get you into covenant so that you are no longer under the hands of God and protected by him. So whatever they're trying to implement, remember, they're going to try to do it cleverly. Do not sign anything. Do not say yes, and do not reclassify yourself, because all of that is that clever way of dealing with you, period, to keep, their thought process is that they can keep what God is going to do from happening, right? So that's why they're dealing craftily with you, and they're dealing with you cleverly. I forgot the word, but you get what I mean.
That acceptable year is Jubilee. And if America won't declare it, God will enforce it anyway.
Right.
Now here's where the spiritual warfare gets real. Right. Ephesians chapter 6 verse 12. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers,
and
against the rulers of the darkness of this world,
I couldn't say
against
verbatim.
spiritual wickedness in high places.
Right.
Principalities. That's not a metaphor, that's a rank.
Right.
Territorial spirits assigned to regions, nations, systems.
Right.
Paul uses the Greek word arch, meaning first in order, chief, ruler. These are angelic beings who were given authority over geographic and political territories.
Right.
Daniel chapter 10 shows you how it works. Daniel prays. 21 days later, an angel shows up and says, "The prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me 21 days.
Right.
But lo, Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me." The prince of Persia wasn't a human king. It was a demonic power ruling over that empire. These principalities don't just influence culture. They shape law, economics, education, media, religion. They've been operating over America since before it was called America. And when a nation builds its wealth on stolen land and stolen bodies, those principalities don't just take a cut, they take ownership. Which means every system, criminal justice, healthcare, housing, employment, isn't just biased. It's demonized.
Listen.
And you can't vote.
Listen. Oh, and I love what he's about to say before I even say it. You can't
protest it out.
You can't protest it out. You can't, what did he say? You can't protest it out. You can't vote it out because it's a wicked system. It's demonic. So anytime they be like, just go up and vote, you're signing a covenant. Do not covenant with these people. Because when you covenant with them and you vote even for the things that they do to you wrong. You got to be careful what you do in this world because the spiritual wickedness in high places has thousands or hundreds of thousands of years of experience of deception. So when you vote, stop thinking of it in a human sense. You're thinking of it too surface, right? You're too carnal. You're too carnal minded. You're not realizing the spiritual ramification of voting. It is a signed, declarated covenant with the government that when you sign into this covenant, whatever the government do to you, good or bad, once you vote, you have agreed that they can do it to you. This is why I tell every race, do not vote. There is no need. They are going to put in the White House who they want as an illusion of inclusion to get you to sell your soul to these people so that they can say, well, you voted for me. Proof is in the pudding. After Trump got rid of all white people's farming workforce, they then Congress gets on there and say, well, you voted for this. Isn't this what you wanted? Didn't you say make America great again? We have to get rid of the immigrants. Now you have signed a covenant where it actually hurt you. And you are seeing this. Look at all the Hispanic and Latino groups who voted for Donald Trump and then got deported and then they got upset. And then what did Congress say to you? But you voted for this. So what are they saying? Let's say it in a spiritual aspect. But you signed the covenant for this. You made a covenant with me that you will agree to anything that I say when you voted for me. So you cannot complain about what I'm doing to you because when you voted, you signed a declaration, right? You made a covenant with me that you agree that for your deportation. You agree to cut your workforce and be defunded. You agreed. That's why I don't vote. That's why nobody in my family vote, because we understand, without sometimes even understanding, the spiritual aspect of voting. Boo, you signed in a covenant. You are letting them do whatever they want to you, and then you can't complain because you said you agreed. Hello, somebody.
You can't educate it out.
And let me tell you something. As the Bible said, that's why God said, choose ye who ye may serve, right? And when you decide to serve these people by going into covenant with them, you have chose them. God said, do not strengthen the hand of the evildoers. When you vote these Congress members into the office, knowing that they're corrupt from the get-go, right? And so some of you who are ignorant, okay, you got ignorance under your belt, but now you know. When you sign these people into government, you are creating covenants with Satan that whatever he does to you in society, you are in agreement with. So therefore, once he's done doing whatever it is he is doing to you, this government and his system, you can't complain because you signed on a dotted line that this candidate is somebody that you want to represent you in Congress and you want to represent you in the world, and you made this covenant that whatever he do to you, he is willfully to do it because you said he was, right? When you voted. Just saying, start thinking spiritually. All right? Don't be too spiritually minded to earthly good, but understand that the ramification and the proof is in the pudding for the workforce in the Hispanic and Latino groups, and some of you black folk who voted for Donald Trump, and some of you white people who voted for Donald Trump, who children will have to fight in the Iran war, who farms have been, the workforce has been decimated, and crops and food and inflation. You guys all made a covenant with him to do this. So to now say, oh, I be damned, it's almost absurd now because you went into covenant with him when you voted for him. I'm not saying Kamala or anybody else, any of these people, don't vote. Don't vote for any of them. For any of them. That's what I'm saying. None of them. Do not strengthen the hand of the evildoer. Period.
To pull it down in the spirit realm first. That's why they don't want you praying. That's why they took prayer out of schools. That's why they mock fasting, call it legalism, turn worship into entertainment. Right. Because prayer is the weapon that pulls down strongholds.
Oh, yes.
2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 4.
Yeah.
For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds.
Right.
Strongholds.
I cast
the Greek
down
word
every
is
thought and every vain
ochuroma,
imagination
a fortress,
that
a
exalts itself
military
against the
installation.
knowledge of God and
When
bring
you
into
pray in the
captivity every
Spirit, you're
thought
not
to the
asking
obedience
God
of
to
Christ
feel
Jesus.
better about your problems. You're dismantling the legal right demons have to operate in your territory. Every time your grandmother prayed through the night, she was doing legal warfare in the courts of heaven. Every time your great-grandfather fasted and sought God's face, he was revoking contracts. They didn't have seminary degrees, they had access. And access beats education every time. Let me show you something that should make your spine tingle. Revelation chapter 18, verse 4. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, Come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not of her plagues.
Right.
Not the Babylonians.
Right. I gotta go.
My people.
Right.
God's people are in Babylon. They've been there so long they don't even recognize it as captivity
Yeah,
anymore.
we do. Yes,
They've got Babylonian jobs, mortgages, educations, theology, and God is saying, come out, not reform it.
Right.
Not vote it into righteousness.
Right.
Come out.
There's
Physically, economically.
Right. And I'm glad he said that. There's no vote. A lot of black people say, a lot of black people who believe in politics. Ooh, okay. A lot of black people who believe in politics. Sorry, I pulled on my brake. A lot of black people who believe in politics will tell you, oh, vote such and such in here. We got to make sure next year we vote, because if we don't vote right, then we'll this, that, and the thing. There's nothing you can vote for, black people. They already have play-by-play each book. Anything that you think of, they already got a script for it. They already got a script for anybody that will win the election. And they already got a script for, and they already chose who will. So there's nobody you can vote for that is going to get you out of the situation that you are currently in, right? It's just not. And so you got to realize this, right? And you got to understand that you pray and prayer without works is dead. So understand that you don't just pray and sit. You pray and you work toward a goal, and that's to liberate and free your mind, yourself, your body, and your people. And that's it. You cannot vote this in. You cannot vote this in. And when I say work, I mean like build generational wealth. Build godly enterprise and godly institutions for you and your children and your people. Work together under one accord to build your own cities and towns and busing and train system, traveling companies, cities, homes, schools, all the things that we used to have, theaters, and you gotta let God be your guide and be your refuge, and let the Most High, God of all creation, Jesus Christ, our Lord and our God and Savior, not with no Baal, we rebuke that, our God and our Savior, come over us and just protect us the way He is always, and rest on Him, and rest assured that He will come through, because He has every single time and all the time. And you have to just trust that. You don't have to live in fear. You don't have to live in confusion. You don't have to deal with the systems that are at hand and feel defeated in any way, form, or fashion, because you are a protected people. You are, and I know the world has had its way with you, but God very much do love you, and very much do, very much do. Can you stop that? Stop putting the brake on. Very much do protect you and just love you, and we're gonna get through this one way or another, because God is good.
Mentally, spiritually,
right,
separate, because the plagues are coming.
Right.
7 of them.
Right.
Revelation 16. And if you're still tied to Babylon's economy when the first bowl pours out, you're going down with the ship. Now,
well, we got to think through that, because we can't help the financial situations we're in, right? We can't help some of this. So, God has grace and mercy on all of us. Remember that. We can't help the system that we're in. We can't just break free. We can break free from the system, but I'm talking about financially. God is going to have to lead us in that, because, we can't help certain situations financially. You know what I mean? So.
Let me connect 2 dots they hope you miss. Genesis 47. Joseph is running Egypt's economy during the famine.
Right.
People run out of money, so Joseph takes their livestock in exchange for food.
Sorry.
Then they run out of livestock, so Joseph takes their land. Then they've got no land left, so Joseph takes them. Buy us and our land for bread, and we and our land will be servants unto Pharaoh. Egypt becomes a centralized totalitarian state where Pharaoh owns everything and everyone. That's the model. That's the blueprint. Fast forward to 2008, the housing crash. Subprime mortgages targeted at Black and Latino families, predatory loans, adjustable rates that ballooned, foreclosures. Wall Street banks seized millions of homes. Blackstone Group, the world's largest private equity firm, bought them up for pennies on the dollar and turned them into rentals. People who owned homes now rent them from hedge funds. You see the pattern? Egypt, Pharaoh, Joseph. Except this time Joseph isn't on your side. This time he's working for Pharaoh. And Pharaoh is the central banking system, the Federal Reserve, the IMF, the World Bank. And the end game is the same. But here's the twist. Exodus chapter 12, verses 35 through 36. And the children of Israel did according to the word of Moses, and they borrowed of the Egyptians jewels of silver and jewels of gold and raiment. And the Lord gave the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians, so that they lent unto them such things as they required, and they spoiled the Egyptians. Spoiled. The Hebrew word is natsah.
What?
To plunder, to strip, to take by force what was wrongfully held. The Israelites didn't sneak out of Egypt poor. They left loaded. Gold, silver, garments, reparations. Not because Egypt was generous, because God orchestrated favor in the middle of judgment. While the plagues were falling, while Egypt was collapsing, God positioned his people to walk out with the wealth. That's your pattern. You're not leaving this thing broke. You're coming out with the wealth transfer, and it won't come from the government. It'll come
Get
from
that out of your
Babylon
way.
eating itself.
Pay attention. Sorry, guys.
Pay attention to this. Revelation chapter 18, verses 2 and 3. Babylon the Great is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. For all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the kings of the earth. Merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. Notice that. The merchants got rich, the system made billionaires. But verse 11 says, and the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her, for no man buyeth their merchandise anymore. The economy collapses overnight, and everything they accumulated turns to ash. But verse 4 already told God's people to come out, meaning before the collapse there's an exit, a way out. And those who hear the voice and obey don't just survive, they inherit. Because Proverbs chapter 13 verse 22 says, the wealth of the sinner is laid up for the just. Not maybe. Not if you're lucky. Laid up. Stored. Waiting for transfer. The question is, are you in position to receive it, or are you still holding Babylonian currency when it becomes worthless? Now let me bring you back to that army in Revelation 19. Those riders on white horses following Jesus. Verse 14 says they're clothed in fine linen, white and clean. Who are they? Verse 8 already told you. And to her was granted that she should be arrayed in fine linen, clean and white.
And I want y'all to understand, I know how that sounds and you're thinking to yourself, same thing I'm thinking if you're thinking what I'm thinking. It is virtually impossible for us to, the currency at the current time that, because this is future endeavors, you understand me? So right now the currency is not decimated completely, right? But again, God provides, so right now we can only be under the currency and whatnot will do that we're under now. So just if that makes sense to you, hold on, go ahead.
Fine linen is the righteousness of saints. Saints, not angels. Believers. Resurrected, glorified, battle-ready believers. And they're not just watching, they're riding. They're part of the invasion force. And here's what should make you stand up. If you're part of the bride, you're part of the army. There's no distinction. The church isn't a passive,
keep going, guys.
The militant, advancing, conquering force. And the battles you fought on earth, the poverty, the racism, the injustice, the trauma, weren't random suffering. They were basic training. You learned to fight in the dark. You learned to worship in the storm. You learned to stand when everything said fall. And Jesus is coming back with an army that knows how to fight. Not with swords, not with guns, with righteousness, with truth, with the word made flesh. And you're in that number.
I don't want that on.
Zechariah chapter 14 verses 3 through 5. Then shall the Lord go forth and fight against those nations as when he fought in the day of battle. And his feet shall stand in that day upon the Mount of Olives, which is before Jerusalem on the east. And the Mount of Olives shall cleave in the midst thereof toward the east and toward the west. And there shall be a very great valley, and half of the mountain shall remove toward the north, and half of it toward the south. And ye shall flee to the valley of the mountains, for the valley of the mountains shall reach unto Azal. Yea, ye shall flee like as ye fled from before the earthquake in the days of Uzziah, king of Judah. And the Lord my God shall come, and all the saints with thee, all the saints with him, not waiting in heaven, not watching from the sidelines, with him on the ground at Armageddon. You're not getting raptured out of the fight. You're coming back for it. And every lesson you learned surviving Babylon is ammunition for that day. Now let me tell you why this matters right now, in your life, in your family, in your community. Because Revelation isn't just about the future, it's about now. Revelation chapter 1 verse 1 says, the revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave unto him, to show unto his servants things which must shortly come to pass. Shortly. The Greek word is takos. It means quickly, speedily, without delay. John wrote that 2,000 years ago, and it's still shortly because God operates outside of time. 2 Peter chapter 3 verse 8. One day is with the Lord as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as one day. Meaning the end time events aren't distant. They're unfolding. They've been unfolding. And you're not preparing for something far off. You're already in it. The birth pangs have started. And every contraction is closer together, more intense. The question isn't when. The question is, are you awake? You want to know what keeps them up at night. It's not your anger. They can manage anger. They've got riot gear for that. It's not your poverty. They created poverty. They know how to contain it. What terrifies them is your awakening. Because once you remember who you are, once you connect your suffering to prophecy, once you realize your bloodline has a divine assignment, you stop begging for inclusion. You stop asking for a seat at their table. You build your own table. And that table, that economy, that parallel kingdom, that's what brings down Babylon. Not from the outside, from the inside. When God's people come out of her, Babylon has no power. Now, let me walk you through how this suppression happened over 4 periods of history. Because understanding the timeline shows you this wasn't accidental. It was strategic. Let's start in 1452. Pope Nicholas V sits in Rome, the center of Christendom, and he's got a decision to make. Portugal wants to expand into Africa. They want to trade. They want to conquer. And they want the church's blessing.
Right, so this is the scatter to Africa. Again, I told you how Africa was the last country to, well, I didn't tell you, but it was another guy, but I just repeated what he said. And he gave the whole story. I forgot his name. I'll probably put a small video up of it. But the scatter for Africa was the last country to be colonized in modern time. For its resources, where a lot of the black Europeans and a lot of the black Europeans and some American Indian tribes had fled or were forced to. So yes, they wanted the resources, the scatter. This was not in the 1600s. This was not in the 1700s. This was implemented in the 1800s. So I wanted to give a historical account so that you know what I'm talking about.
Nicholas issues Dum Diversas. It's a papal bull, which means it carries the full weight of church authority. Right. And it gives Portugal permission to invade, capture, vanquish, and subdue Saracens, pagans, and other enemies of Christ, to put them into...
Okay, so again, know that the papal bull, the Dum Diversas, does not have any country or any state, any country, any continent listed in the papal bull's Dum Diversas. There aren't any. So if they be like, oh, it's West African, that's inference. They made that up. It's not in the Dum Diversas. It's not in the Dum Diversas at all. Any state. As a matter of fact, it was like I read from AI Overview. It just generalized any nation of people in any country, city, or state that was a non-believer, a pagan, that has absolutely no ethnic, racial connotation to it, right? It was just anybody who did not believe in I believe it was Catholicism at the time.
Perpetual slavery, and to take all their possessions and property.
Right.
3 years later,
so that's why it's so funny. Oh my God, Stephen Darby talked about this. He talked about the new religion. You know, you got the Christian nationalism, coupled with some paganism, coupled with some coupled with some I knew what he said too, like the Pharisees, the beliefs of the Pharisees. I forgot what is the Pharisees and Sadducees, old world religion, which is Judaism. I couldn't say it, and that's going to be the new religion of what they're going to use. I'm just being honest. Stephen Darby talked about this. It's so crazy. This man died 2017. How God blessed him with prophecy, because everything that this man said in 2017 happened years after his death, right? The war, again, you got to go check him out. Stephen Darby Ministries, amazing. He talked about the war between Ukraine and Russia, like, and why. Like, he talked, oh my God. Like, it's so crazy that he said this in this. Oh my God. The New World Religion basically is going to pretend like it's righteous, if you will, and, you know, make people and criminalize people not believing in the same belief as them, type thing. And like use it as a way now, because they know that they got to give the land back. They're going to try to use it as a way to reconfiscate the land, or to confiscate the land without you even understanding that the land is being reconfiscated.
If Pope Nicholas issues another one, Romanus Pontifex. This one's even more explicit. It grants Portugal the right to enslave all people in West Africa in perpetuity.
And it wasn't West Africa. Again, I told you the Popaville has no race, no ethnicity, no geographical location in the Popaville Dum Diverses. So it was just for anybody who was being enslaved, point blank period. It gave them the legal right to enslave and take their stuff. And it's so funny because I was just watching a video today that I just was like, I'm not even going to entertain it, but it goes right into this, how Congress was trying to pass a law to say that people who are exonerated, when they're incarcerated, they don't have no way to prove their innocence, to make innocent people that you know are innocent into slaves through the law, right? Through the law. So through this loophole that they're trying to create, but using the fact that when a person is incarcerated, that you can enslave them. They're trying to take exonerated innocent people and make them slaves. So anybody that gets locked up, again, they're trying to do old tactics, which means they're going to do National Guard, heavy policing in black communities, lock you up for anything, all of this, because they're going to try to implement this. It's not going to stand, because remember, Israel is going to come up. This is why we're waking up, and this is why this is coming to our minds. This is why we're able to figure out things that we've never been able, some of us, they said some of your daughters will prophesy, some of your sons and daughters will prophesy. This is why you see prophets, people coming out of nowhere, and everything they're saying is coming into fruition, because God said this. This was our prophecy, is being legitimately fulfilled. It is not going to stand. This is why they're in Congress trying to say, well, a person who's emancipated can't know. So they're saying we cognitively know he or she is innocent, but we're going to use this as a clause to keep them in prison because they can't prove their innocence, because they are arrested and locked up falsely. Hello, somebody. God does not honor gross injustice. As a matter of fact, gross injustice is one of the things that catapulted Sodom and Gomorrah being burned to nothing. Because when one of Lot's daughters, saw, in Sodom and Gomorrah, feeding the homeless and merchants, they would rob the merchants and take all their goods from them and make them poor. And then if you were to feed them, you would be killed. So now that they're poor, they outlawed feeding the homeless. So one day Lot's daughter decided, they had stole and robbed a merchant. The merchant didn't have nothing. He crying out. And so Lot's daughter went in there to go feed the merchant behind closed doors. And for a minute, nobody knew. So when they came to check and see if the merchant was dead, they realized the merchant wasn't dead like all the rest of the merchants. So the head of Sodom and Gomorrah is like, who's feeding him? Go find out who's feeding him, because feeding the homeless to the Sodom and Gomorrah was death worthy. So they was like, okay, who's feeding him? And they found out that Lot's daughter was feeding him, and they burned her alive. So God said, they can't be real. This can't be real, that you're killing people for feeding homeless that you robbed and made homeless. So God sent down the angels, came down himself. He said, let us come down, meaning that he came down with the angels and said, let me see if it's really, he already knew, but God is a righteous God. He wants to save people. That's why when Abraham came to him and was like, listen, if 40 people be good, listen, God, if 10 be good, would you, if 5 be, he said, listen, if you can find anybody in Sodom and Gomorrah, I will spare all of it. Couldn't find one. Can you get my nephew out? God said, all right. Angels came right down, went to Lot's house. Lot, being around Abraham, still had righteousness, though he was in Sodom and Gomorrah. He said, come on in. So that they were so corrupt, both young and old men were trying to rape and sodomize the angels. This how nasty they was. America is right there. Gross injustice will be the undoing of America. When you start, because y'all been doing it, but these are the final days to restore yourself and repent. And y'all not going to heed the warning, because the evil people in wicked and high places continue to trick you on the times, continue to do evil and have you do it in unrepentant. So first and foremost, these gross injustice, when they set this lady on fire, brought down God and the angels on earth. God was orchestrated. Come in, Lot said. Come into the house. And then they so wicked, they banging on the door telling Lot, if you don't let us in to do what we want to do to these angels, we are going to do worse with you than we do them. So the angels blinded them. He blinded them. And it still didn't stop them from searching, and eventually they went away. So God saw these people's heart couldn't change. So he told Lot, he woke Lot up. He ate. Lot served the angels, fed them, and they went to bed. They went to sleep. Angels woke Lot up early and said, listen, let's go. Come on, Lot, take you and your daughter. Listen, what God about to do to Sodom and Gomorrah, don't look back. All right, he's destroying this off the face of the earth. They too wicked. So he destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah completely. And that is what is going to happen to America, because gross injustice was what's catapulted Sodom and Gomorrah to being destroyed. In America, every day they're looking for a way to keep exonerated men and women in prison and then turn around and enslave them. It is going to catapult America to be judged by God, and it is going to rain fire and hailstone all over America. I mark my words. You think it's a game? He's already been showing you that this economy is collapsing. He's already been showing you. I told y'all not to make no covenant. You do not understand when you vote. You are making a covenant. It is going to ultimately destroy y'all. Racism, white supremacy, these things is your Achilles heel. It is going to destroy America. Look what it done. Make America great again. Messed up farming, the workforce, deported, separated children, racial discrimination, murder, public execution, racism at an all-time high, gross injustice, forced enslavement. Good luck. I'm telling you, y'all gonna catapult America into a black hole of death and doom. But y'all go ahead and keep doing what you're doing.
Forever.
It's only
no
a warning.
Expiration date. Now, why does this matter? Because in 1452, the Catholic Church was the supreme moral and spiritual authority in Europe. Kings answered to the Pope. Nations sought his approval. When the Pope said something was godly, it became law.
Right.
So when the Vatican said enslaving Africans was permissible, it wasn't.
Again, as Camario Ahu say, Dow Jones hijack. We already debunked the transatlantic African slave trade. Okay, we already debunked that. It's fake. He's talking about the American Indian slave trade. That's it, and that's all. And so, again, the Popol Vuh does not have any nation, any ethnicity, race, or geographical region on it. It was vague for not pagan, Sadducees. All this stuff was people who just didn't believe in the Catholic faith. That's it. It had no racial ethnic connotation to it.
Political decision, it was a theological one. It gave spiritual cover to an economic system. And that document, both of those documents, are still in the Vatican archives today.
Right.
They've never been rescinded, never formally.
And the reason why they're not rescinded is because, listen, end time prophecy needed to be fulfilled.
That's not a conspiracy. That's documented history.
Right.
Now follow the thread. The transatlantic have been forcibly taken to the Americas.
I gotta dodge the hijack on you. I already told you the transatlantic slave trade is fake. That's not what they're talking about. They're talking about when they ship your grandparents, great-great-grandparents over to Africa, Liberia, Cabo Verde, and Sierra Leone. We already talked about the ships. They're missing slave continuation, slave manifest, embarkation, disembarkation from Africa to the America. They're missing the purchase of the bill of sale, the purchase of the slave ship, right? You gotta, in order to insure it, you gotta prove it exists by having a bill of sales. Privateer ships, even when funding was coming from companies or individuals, you still had to prove the ship exists by way of a bill of sale in order to get the funding. They are missing all law of marque, which is the right to even drive these ships, bill of sales, and they're missing the slave manifest. So the slave ship manifest. I don't know what you're talking about. So it's all fake. That's fake. The slavery in which they're talking about is the Indian slave trade, the American Indian slave trade, when they were shipping your ancestors to Sierra Leone, Cabo Verde, and then in the 1700s, Liberia. Okay, and then, as they took Pocahontas and several of her tribal members and took them to Europe, right? So that's what they're talking about, including the Spanish Inquisition. Hello, somebody.
2 million die on the ships. The ones who survive are so...
Again, that's all fake.
That's documented.
That's all fake.
Yale University.
That's actually not documented. Again, so the stories that they're referring to are just conceptual art, because the manifest and the primary sources to corroborate the existence of the boats don't exist. Any narrative and any story in second or third dairy do not qualify. They don't count. It cannot be considered a historical truth because it's hearsay, right? So these articles cannot prove the ship's existence without the manifest, which would be an inventory of the cargo and the crew, because the Queen would not sign to give you money if she don't even know who's going with you. Navigating, you would need an extensive crew. Navigating the Atlantic Ocean is not easy due to its rocky coastal lines, the icebergs, due to the ocean gyres, which if you get caught in it, it will make you go into a figure 8 and you'll be stuck there for months. So you needed food, water, warmth. You needed everything. This was not just some voyage. You would need everything. So you would need a manifest so that the Queen knows who she's paying for, where his or her king and queen need to know where their money going, and if there's insurance on the ship, you would have to prove the ship exists by way of bill of sales, right? So the ship gotta exist. You need the bill of sale, proof of purchase. You couldn't just say, yeah, this is my ship, I'm going. You need a bill of sales that ship was sold to you. The Queen and the King were not just giving away money to random people. They're trying to make themselves successful, right? That was the whole point. The fur trade, tobacco, sugar cane, so forth and so on. They're trying to gain wealth, right? So they're not going to just hand you over money and you don't even got a captain, a crew. You don't even own a boat. You just say you do, with some fictitious insurance. You couldn't even get insurance without a bill of sale. It's just like purchasing a car. And yes, the same rules apply today. Common sense. That's where we get insurance from. Old world laws, we just use them today. So in order for you to get insurance on a car, you have to prove you purchased the car first, right? You can't just get insurance on a car that is not owned by anybody, right? So period. You can check to see the rate of the car first. And you could quote the rate, but you can't just get insurance on a car without purchase, right? Without proof of ownership. right? And the same went for these vessels. They weren't just handing out money for any white Joe Schmo to just go up there and start sailing. It's a lie. No, didn't happen like that. So the transatlantic slave trade is fake. It is missing primary sources. You need the primary sources to corroborate the secondary sources or tertiary sources, such as newspaper articles or letters. Because without the primary sources to corroborate second and tertiary sources, there's no proof they exist. You can't say that that's a historical fact. You need that. The burden of truth or proof rests on the shoulders of the accuser. They're accusing you of being African. They have to now present the evidence to you in a code of law. And they don't have any evidence to prove you are African. So stop calling yourself African American. Period. Or FBA. Or any acronym that says that you're African descent. Anyway.
As Scott Institute Christianity was complicit, I'm not attacking faith. I'm stating facts.
Right.
The institution protected itself. It chose economic survival, biblical justice. And in doing so, it created a theology that justified black suffering.
Right.
Enter the curse of Ham.
Now, okay.
Genesis.
So this is what I wanted to get to. This is the curse of Ham. Is that the curse that we're under? The answer is no. Well, I'm going to read to you Zondervan's Pictorial Dictionary about who Ham is and who Ham is not. So I'm going to go ahead and read it from Google Overview, from AI Overview, right? Who is Ham? Ham, the youngest son of Noah, born probably about 96 years before the flood, and one of the 8 persons to live through the flood. He became the progenitor of the dark races, not the Negroes, but the Egyptians, Ethiopians, Libyans, and Canaanites. Again, Ham is the progenitor of the dark races, but not the Negroes. What does that mean? That means that Negroes belong to another people, right? And these Negroes, though they favor the children of Ham, Ham is not their father. Well, we already canceled out Japheth's children because we know the Gentiles are your white folk and your Mongols, right? We know this because Magog, according to the chronological history of the Russian and Median War, stated that that was his ancestors. Ashkenazi Jews, who are the same as any other white folk, right, who acclimated themselves into the Anglo-Saxon nation in the 1600s through naturalization laws, belong to Gentile, hence Ashkenaz, right? So, and these people are not European, but they are people from Khazar, Armenian, Turkish, so forth and so on, right? So these people acclimated themselves into the English, okay, the Anglo-Saxons. We are not Hamites. The curse that you have, that he just spoke about in Deuteronomy, it doesn't even make sense. Deuteronomy was talking about the curse of Israel, not the curse of Ham. Okay? And Ham was never cursed. Canaan was cursed, right? To be a servant to Shem and Japheth. Now, there was this guy, I forgot his name. I'll do a video on who Canaan is. But let's just say some of these Southeast Asian groups, some of these people are mixed with Canaanites. And this is the reason why it's so easy to get them to turn on black folk. Some of y'all model minority groups belong to Canaan, and you are a slave to Japheth, after being a slave to Shem, who are the Portuguese Iberians. Hello, somebody. Because the Spanish Inquisition, these Spaniards are, again, Europeans are not, white people are not Europeans. Europeans belong to a bloodline, and they are not a part of that bloodline. You can do the research of when Japheth's children acclimated themselves into Europe and Asia in the 1600s, and through naturalization laws, they acclimated themselves into the Anglo-Saxons. They did not get rid of the Anglo-Saxons, they just took their name. And then when they got over the printing press in the late 1800s, they began to create photos and imageries of themselves as the European, the black nobility. Hello, somebody. Please don't do it to me. I'm historically accurate. We can research this together. Hallelujah. Hello, somebody. So there is no curse of Ham, boo. We don't belong to Ham. We belong to Shem. Okay? The true bloodline of Judah. You're looking at it. Okay, baby, live and in living color. That's why they don't like us. We are shaking of a head, a byword in every nation, cut off from being a people. Come on, let's talk about it. We don't got a flag. We don't got a nation. Where they say that Japhet will dwell in the tents of Shem. Everywhere we have been, from Asia to the Americas to Europe, all of Japhet children live in our homes and our houses that we build up. They burn down, and now we surrounded with them. Hello, somebody. We are a misnomer. African American, because they don't got any documentation to prove you African, and not until 1988 you were even classified as African American. And that term where they take two different countries or whatever and mesh them together and make them one people wasn't even invented until 1988. Nobody has ever been on this ground, ever been European or Asian American. You only been European or Asian, and that was it. That was the first time it was ever implemented to take two different countries or continents or whatnot or whatever and mesh them together. Two countries, mesh them together and call somebody African American. You can't do that without any records to prove we African. You don't got no law marquee, which is the rights to even navigate the ship. You don't got bill of sales for the sale existence through by way of purchase, and you're missing the crew cargo manifest that would document the voyage, embarkation, disembarkation continuously from Africa to the Americas. End of discussion, boo. You ain't no African. They ain't never got no Africans. Any history that they tell you about slavery was Jim Crow ever. After they made you, did not honor the old settler treaties by reclassifying you as freedmen, burning down your cities and infrastructures in the late 18 and 1900s, forcing you, because slavery was abolished in 1808 for foreigners and in American Indians in the 1600s, Southeast Asians in the 1700s. You would work out your indenture for 7 years and be set free, boo. Hello, somebody. We were prisoners of war, right? Emancipated, because anything after 1808 would not be a slave, but would be considered an indentured servant. You are emancipated. That's why they call it a labor dispute. You were emancipated from your indenture if you were in servitude. Some of y'all ancestors weren't, right? If you were emancipated. They burned your cities down and reclassified you, sweetheart. Negro, color, and black, 1924 Racial Integrity Act, while giving their brethren, the Mongolians, a new identity, Native American, where it was federally recognized simultaneously while they stole your identity. Hello, somebody. Everything that happened in the Bible to Israel happened to us right here in America, not Africa, boo. Right here. You were reclassified. You were cut off from being a nation, as it spoke about in Psalms 83:3 that we read. You were reclassified, cut off from being a nation, a byword to every nation. What is your byword? They call you a nigger. They even call you a nigger in Africa. Like I said, I Show Speed went over there to, I forgot what country, something with an A, and was called the nigger. Listen to me. You are a byword. It is literally telling you who you are. In Deuteronomy, the slavery that they talking about is when the Spanish came and took your ancestors over there to Cabo Verde, Sierra Leone, to get rid of the Negro problem. In the I believe the late 1700s, they shipped you and your people over there to Liberia, and that's how these countries in Africa were founded. Hello, somebody. If they were the original people of the land, these black people wouldn't be considered colonizers. Hallelujah. They letting you know, I'm letting you know right here, you are not an African, and yes, in fact, you are Hebrew. Hallelujah. They letting you know this history exposes who you are. It happened here, boo. Stop looking at Africa. It's right here. It's right here. Your Egypt ain't never been over there. Your Egypt ain't never been over there. There's too many historical books in your Masonic libraries that will tell you that America is the true old world. You are looking over there when you should be here. Africa was the last country to be colonized. The scatter for Africa was when Europe no longer had resources and had lost, and Spain had lost the world to the English, and they started running for the hills over there into Africa. And they went over there and found all those resources, as when them black Europeans, because only black people are European. Yes, you have European ancestry, some of us, because the original Europeans do not, these white people are not European. I said this again, they're Armenian, right? They're Armenian, Slavic, Bulgarian, Czech Republic, Turkish, Khazarian. They are not European at all. They have no European ancestry. The original Europeans were black. That's hence why Benjamin Franklin wrote in the 1800s that Europe was full of black and brown people, and the Spanish and Portuguese is what you would like to call swarthy. You can look up old-time etymology of the word swarthy. It means to be dark skinned. That's also where, again, thank you, Camario Ahu, they get the name Stewart and Dougal. Right? These kings and queens were letting you know based on their names that they were dark people. Okay? Not to mention the coats of arms and family crest of these Negro people that was on there. Some Negro Moors, some not. They were just black Europe, some of them black Europeans. Hello, somebody. You do not come from any Ham curse. Hello, somebody. We done been here an hour and 43 minutes, y'all. I love that we are having this discussion. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. I'm going to cut this short, and I'll come back to you later with more. Peace out. Bye for now.